Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our second session of the directing function. During the first session, we have discussed about the introduction to the directing function, and we have talked about several aspects such as leadership itself. The directing where we've said that it depends on leadership skill, motivation skill, and even communication skill. So in the initial session, the first session, we've discussed about leadership skills that a manager should be able to utilize while trying to direct his employees, where we have discussed about leadership sources of power, and also the theories of leadership, and also the leadership styles. And now we just going ahead with our second part. In order to direct, you must have another important skill in motivation and also in communication. So leadership, we just concluded it, and in this session we're talking about motivation. As a leader, if you want to effectively direct the activities of your employees, you need to have skills in motivation. Motivation is the act of stimulating someone or oneself to take a desired course of action. It is the act or process of furnishing with an incentive or inducement to action. By motivation here, in our Somali settings, we talk about it as dirgalin. If you want to provide somebody with motivation, you must be able to stimulate that person in order to do something. You want somebody to carry a chair from one position to another position, or you want somebody to go and bring you goods from one point to another point. Motivate that person. Different ways that which we can motivate the person, we are going to look into them. However, the simplest is by making a simple request. And not just making a simple request, you can also motivate by giving somebody a reward, giving somebody a bonus, giving somebody a tip, or even by mere saying simple words like thank you. These are simple ways that which a manager can actually motivate the activities of his or her employees. The primary task of managers is to get people to contribute activities that help to achieve the mission and goals of an organization. That is the main task of any manager. And in order to guide people activities in desired directions requires knowing what leads people to do things. That is what motivates them. As a leader, if you want to get people to contribute activities that can help your organization in the achievement of its mission and goals, you need to know actually what will motivate my employees, what will make them to do what they are supposed to do. So different theories have been put forward to explain motivation. We are going to look into these theories of motivation, but before looking into them, we have a simple metaphor here. The carrot and stick metaphor relates to the use of rewards and penalties in order to induce desired behavior. It comes from the old story that to make a donkey move, one must put a carrot in front of him or jab him with a stick from behind. Carrot represents rewards, for example, money, bonus, salary increase, employment promotion, and many others, while the stick implies penalty punishment, fear of loss, or fear of job loss, or fear of loss of income, or even fear of demotion, and many others. This old story, the old metaphor here, is about a donkey. How do you make a donkey to move? There are two ways that you can make a donkey to move. One way, you can make a donkey to move by putting a carrot in front of him. When you put a carrot in front of a carrot in front of a monkey, of a donkey, automatically the donkey will look at the carrot and it will move towards the carrot. Another way you can make the donkey to move is by beating behind with a stick. When you beat the donkey, automatically the donkey will move to the direction that you want it to move. So these are the two ways that which we use to explain the aspect of motivation in organizational setting. An employee, you want an employee to work. If you want an employee to work, then use the carrot. For example, in the case of a donkey, the carrot represents rewards. For example, money, bonus, salary increase, promotion, and many others. When you use a carrot, for example, the rewards, the employee will work very hard to move towards the direction which you want him or her to move. Another way you can make the employee to work hard is to use a stick. For example, for the case of the donkey, beat the donkey behind and you'll see the donkey will move forward. The stick here implies penalty, punishment, fear of loss of job, or fear of loss of income, or even demotion, and many others. If you want an employee to work and he is not working well, then you have to take some actions, penalties. For example, you can punish that particular employee, or you can reduce the salary of that particular employee. That represents the stick. So this old story of a donkey actually will give us a clear understanding of how motivation works, meaning that motivation can work in form of a carrot, or motivation can work in form of a stick. Among the several theories, as we are going to look into them, despite many new theories of motivation, reward and punishment are still considered to be the strong motivators. These are the strong motivators, reward and punishment. For many centuries, however, they were too often thought of as the only forces that motivate the people. At the same time, in all theories of motivation, the inducement of some kind of carrot is recognized. For example, money, even though it is not the only kind of motivating force, has been and will continue to be an important one. So, money, reward and punishment have been widely considered as strong motivators in organizational setting. The first theory we are going to look into is the hierarchy of needs theory. According to the hierarchy of needs theory, this is one of the most mentioned theories of motivation, and it was developed by Abraham Maslow. It's commonly known as Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. According to this theory, it is assumed that man is a wanting animal. As soon as one of his needs is satisfied, another need appears in its place. This process is unending. It continues from birth to death. That is the first assumption of this Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. The second assumption is that human needs are arranged in the form of a hierarchy, starting in an ascending order from the lowest to the highest. And when one set of needs is satisfied, this kind of need ceases or stops to be a motivator. So according to the Abraham's hierarchy of needs theory, he says that man is a wanting animal. Right from the time when somebody is born, from birth to death, there are some things that which we need. And these things that which we need are arranged in the form of hierarchy, from the first one until the last one, from birth, that's from birth until death. Is that clear? So this implies that there are some things that which we need in life when we are young. There are some things that which we need in life when we reach a particular age. Let's say, for example, adolescence. There are some things we need when we reach the age of maturity. And there are some things we need when we reach the old age. What are these things? According to to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic human needs identified by Maslow are physiological, safety or security, social esteem, and self-actualization needs. and these needs are arranged in an ascending order of importance, beginning with physiological on top, meaning that this one here, it is needed by a person while you are during the youngest age, infant, from birth. The things you need is only food, water, and shelter. Those are the physiological needs. After physiological needs, the next need that is needed by human being is the safety or the security need. This is where a person reaches maybe the age of 6 to 10 years or to 11 years. This is when somebody needs safety or security. A child needs protection from his parents. And when the child grows to 12 to 18 years or 12 to 15 years, the person reaches what we call the social needs. This is when the person starts making what we call friendships and many other things. Then after social needs, the person will go to esteem needs. This is when the person now wants to start his or her own life. This is the age when somebody wants to marry, wants to work, and then to develop him or herself during the esteem need. And then finally, the last one is the self-actualization need. This is when the person has reached an old age. Here the person only sits at home and waits and then looks at the grandchildren, playing around with the grandchildren, because the person here cannot work, reflects how life was, tries to count the benefits, the achievements, the failures of life, and many other things. That is the self-actualization stage or need. So these needs, the 5 needs, are arranged in an ascending order, beginning from number 1, physiological, number 2, safety or security needs, number 3, social need, number 4, esteem need, and number 5, self-actualization need. So according to Abraham Maslow, these needs are needed by human beings right from birth until death. As you can see, physiological needs is right from birth. Immediately after being born, you'll start needing these things here: food, water, and let's say a place to sleep. That's what a baby needs, nothing more. Then it continues to safety, to social, to esteem, and until the person reaches an old age, where the person experiences self-actualization need, which actually is all about reflecting what life was and waiting. Apart from the Abraham Maslow's theory, we also have Herzberg's motivation or hygiene theory. In his theory, which is also called a two-factor theory, American psychologist Frederick Herzberg has propounded a theory of motivation at work, which divides the factors of the work environment into 2: motivators or satisfiers and maintenance or hygienic. Those motivators were factors having effects on attitude or performance. Maintenance or hygienic factors prevent losses of morale or efficiency, can forestall any serious dissatisfaction or drop in productivity, and allow the motivators to operate. Whereas motivating factors include achievement, personality, recognition, advancement, creative, and even challenging work growth on the job. While maintenance or hygienic factors include company policies, the quality of supervision, interpersonal relations, salary, job security, working conditions, employee benefits, and even job status. So according to Frederick Herzberg, there are 2 major factors which influences motivation among employees in the work. That is why his theory, he gives it a name, a 2-factor theory. According to Frederick Herzberg, he divides these factors into 2. We have the motivators or the suppliers, the satisfiers, and even the maintenance, or even sometimes known as the hygienic factors. So according to Frederick Herzberg, these factors have an effect on employees' performance. and according to the way he distinguished them. For example, the motivating or satisfiers include, for example, achievement, personality, recognition. All these are some things that which employees need in the organization. And these ones here will help in reducing the level of dissatisfaction. Once these factors are available, the level of dissatisfaction among employees will be reduced. Whereas hygienic factors, which include, for example, the company policy, the quality of supervision, interpersonal, and many others, also will help to maintain or to keep an employee in an organization, hence motivating such kind of a person to continue working for that particular company or organization. So Hasberg, without wasting time, Hasberg also propounded this theory whereby he gave us the two factors of motivation. These two factors help in influencing motivation among employees. Those are the motivating and the maintenance, or the satisfiers and the hygienic factors. Money is also another important source of motivation. Even though money is not the motivating force, it has been and will continue to be an important one. Money can never be overlooked as a motivator in whatever form it is given, such as salary, wage, bonus, etc. Money is always important. Yes, you'll find that money is not always discussed as a motivator. However, it influences motivation among employees, especially as here in third world. Somebody will only think about salary alone. Somebody works, doesn't care about the environment, doesn't care about other hygienic factors, but the person only thinks about getting the salary, and life goes on. So money is not one of the factors that motivates employees, but it is a great influence. It influences to a great level motivation among workers or employees, regardless whether it is given in form of salary, in form of wage, or in form of bonus. It can help in motivating workers or employees in an organization. So you have to think about that as a manager. How can you use money to motivate the employees that are working in your company or in your organization? Money satisfies almost all types of needs. Its principal use may be to provide the physical necessities of life as well as security. However, social depends largely on the size of one's earning. A good income provides many people with a sense of accomplishment. So money is important because it helps in satisfying our needs. It acts as a security in our lives. Although it is not one of the major motivators, but it influences motivation among employees working in an organization. So as a manager, you have to actually focus on that aspect of money, and how can you use money as a motivating factor. In fact, we shall discuss more about the aspect of motivation when we shall be discussing about the organizational behavior, where we have a full chapter that discusses about motivation and how can a manager utilize money as a motivator. So in the directing function, we have looked into motivation as one of the major elements of directing. You want to influence the behavior of your employees. You need to have skills in motivation. The final aspect of directing is that of communication. And with communication skills, I will not take much time on this because it is you are already having it in your session, in your English session this semester. You are studying about communication skills. It's the same thing that which we, as a manager, you must be able to apply in an organizational setting. The skills of communication is very important in many aspects. I'm just going to give an overview. Communication is the transfer of information from the sender to the receiver, with the information being understood by the receiver. Communication is the process by which information is transmitted between individuals and organizations so that an understanding response results. So when you talk about communication, it is the process by which you're going to transfer information from one point to another, or from the sender to the receiver. And that information that is being transferred, it must be understood by the receiver. Once it is understood by the receiver, then it implies that a result or a feedback will be provided by the receiver to the sender. So any type of communication, it must be effective in a way that it must be clearly understood by the person to whom it is being made. So in business setting or in an organizational setting, communication is very important, especially between the manager and his followers, between people within the organization, or between one organization and another organization. Communication, we also say that it's the process by which information is transmitted between individuals, that's between one person and another person, and also between organization. One organization can communicate to another organization so that a particular response will be the end result. So you as a manager, you want to influence behavior of your employees. You cannot influence the behavior without clear communication. You must be able to communicate to the employee clearly what you need him or her to do. Once your communication is clear, then the employee will do what is required of him or her. Communication is very important in several ways. As we know, it is the means by which people are linked together in an organization to achieve a common purpose. How do you connect one employee with another employee? How do you link one person with another person? You can only link people in an organization using communication. In our definition of organization, organization is a group of people working together to achieve common goals. A group of people. This group of people cannot work together if there is no effective communication. And that's why the first importance of communication here, we say that it is a means by which people are linked together in an organization. Another importance of communication, it is the process by which ideas are remitted to other for the purpose of affecting a desired result. You want to have a particular result, then pass the idea. I need you to carry goods from Berbera port to my store in Bur'o. I can only make you do that by effectively communicating to you. Go to Berbera, carry the goods from the port and bring to the store in Bur'o. That is a clear communication. So if you want to have a desired result and to affect somebody's behavior, you automatically need to have a clear communication. Also, communication relates the organization with the external environment. As we understand, an organization does not exist in isolation. An organization exists in a society or in a community. And in a community, we have very many organizations surrounding your organization. You need to relate your organization with other external organizations. You need to relate your organization with suppliers. You need to relate your organization with customers. You need to relate your organization with the government. You need to relate your organization with vendors and many other stakeholders. So how are you going to do that? You can only do that if at all you have effective communication in place. So communication relates the organization with the external organizations or environment. Also, communication facilitates managerial functions such as planning, organizing, directing, and controlling. You cannot perform the planning function without communication. You cannot perform the organizing function without communication. You cannot perform directing and controlling functions without communication. So they help in the facilitation of all these functions of management. So communication is very important in an organization. Nothing will happen or nothing can be done in an organization if there is no effective communication. And that is why you as a manager or as a leader, you are currently learning communication skills in your courses. Why you are learning communication skills? So that you can be effective leaders, so that you can influence the behavior of employees in an organization or in a company. Among the principles of effective communication, the following are the most important ones. Clarity of thought should be very clear. What, why, how, when, and where in your communication. The clarity of expression. Use simple words. Don't use ambiguous and different and difficult words. Your words need to be very, very clear, simple, that which can be understood by the recipient or by the other person. Also, correct expressions. Avoid jargons and ambiguity. That is the use. That is the simplicity. Your expression must be very clear. Jargons, terms which are used by people of a particular field, specifically for a particular field, should be avoided, because here you are going to communicate to a group of people, different people in the organization. So your communication must be clear. Don't use jargons, and also don't use ambiguous or very difficult words which cannot be understood. Also, your communication must be completeness. It must be very clear. Don't give half communication. Half communication means that nothing will be done. Your communication must be correct. It must also put into effect the principle of correctness, and also brevity. Attentiveness also is another important principle of effective communication. There must be some kind of attentiveness both in sending and receiving. The person who is sending the communication, the information, must be very attentive so that he or she can send the correct information. And the person who is receiving the information must also be very attentive so that he or she can receive the correct information. And also integrity. That's be in conformity with organizational objectives and policies. Your communication must be in line with the policies of the company. For example, don't just jump. You have your own leader. The structure is very clear, and according to the principles of organizing, we talked about unity of command, meaning that every employee must have only one specific boss. And you are responsible for reporting to and receiving order from only your boss. So don't go and then create another kind of a communication which goes against the policy that has been set by the organization. It must be of integrity. Also, your communication must put into consideration timeliness. That is, outdated information has got no importance. It must be timely. Give the communication at the right time. Otherwise, if you give at the wrong time, that communication will be meaningful. And also objectivity. You need to be factual. You need to avoid emotions. And also you need to avoid prejudice. Your communication must be based on facts. It should not be based on rumors. Like last time when we were talking about informal organization and their ways of communication, we talked about this rumor mongering kind of a communication. That Mr. Heber said, Mr. Heber. No. That is not going to work when it comes to effective organizational setting. Here, your communication must be based on facts and avoid emotions. And also avoid prejudice. Don't boast around and say that nigga, I'm the boss, I'm the big man, and therefore I'm saying as the big man. Don't say like that. There it shows that you are trying to boast around, you're trying to show people your prejudice, that you are above all. So your communication must be full of objectivity. So these ones here clearly explain to us principles of effective communication. You want your communication to be clear, then you have to follow these explained principles. The communication process itself, of course, the major variables in the communication process include the stimulus and motivation. You need to have that motivation to speak or to communicate or to pass the information. After having that motivation or the stimulus, then encoding takes place. That is the sender putting the message or information in an understandable manner. You encode that information. How you are going to pass that information to the receiver. What kind of information you are going to pass to the receiver. And then after encoding, you choose the media or the channel. How are you going to pass the information? It's going to be a verbal face-to-face communication, or it's going to be an online communication. What kind of a tool are you going to use? Then pass that information. When you pass the information, you have already chosen the media, then decode it. The receiver will receive the information and understand the information, will decode that information in his or her memory, understand it. Then after understanding, the receiver is going to provide feedback back to the what? Back to the sender. So these 5 steps clearly show us the communication process, whereby it begins with the stimulus or the motivation to communicate. After having that motivation to communicate, go ahead and encode the message. After encoding the message, choose your particular media. How are you going to send? What are you going to use to send that particular message? Then send that message. Once you send it, automatically it will reach to the receiver. The receiver will receive the message and decode it. Translate this message to his or her understanding. After understanding the message or the information, then the receiver will provide a feedback to the what? To the sender. So this explains to us the process of communication, which I believe you have gone through them clearly during your communication skills session. Types of communication in an organization. Communication can be classified based on a number of dimensions, such as the direction of flow, the media of transmission, and even the channel of use. Based on the direction of flow in the organization hierarchy, communication can be classified into downward communication, upward, and horizontal communication. Here, it is based on the direction of flow. Last time when we were talking about the organizing function, we talked about organizational structures of an organization, whereby we have on top, we have the middle level, the top level managers. Then from top level, we go to the middle level managers. Then from middle level, we go to the operating level or the first level managers. Then from first level, we go to the operating employees down there. So this can be the kind of a hierarchy in an organization. So if it is like that, then we can have 3 kinds of communication. Downward communication. Downward communication, it means that the communication is going to come from top moving down. From the top level manager going down to the what? Operating level employees. That is the downward communication. Then the upward communication is going to move from the operating level employees down, going up to the top level managers. And horizontal communication, meaning that it is going to be among people of the same level, of the same hierarchy. For example, managers, heads of departments. Since all of them are in the same level, same line, then automatically they can have communication amongst them, which is actually horizontal in nature. Or operating employees, all of them together in the same line, can have a type of communication we call the horizontal communication. Then based on how they are transmitted or the media that is used for communication, we can have the following types: the written communication, oral communication, and nonverbal communication, which I believe you have all gone through them in your English session, and that's why I'm not going to take much time explaining about these forms or types of communication. Otherwise, written communication This can be in form of memos, in form of notice boards, and several others. And then we have oral communication. This one can be the verbal communication from the word of mouth. Verbally, you can communicate to your employees and directing them to do what they are supposed to do. And also non-verbal communication, which utilizes the sign language. The sign language, such as body posture, the gesture, eye gesture, the hand movements, and many others. So these are the three major forms of communication, which can be classified based on the media that has been used for transmission. And also, based on the channels used for communication, we can have two types of communication. That is the formal communication and the informal communication. The formal communication, this one here, flows along official channel and uses official formats. Formal channel are the communication chains and networks that determine the direction and flow of official messages the members of the organization follows. Policies, procedures, rules, reports are communicated formally and using official channel. So the formal organization automatically uses formal communication channel, implying that policies, procedures, rules, reports, memos, and others, they are communicated formally and they use official communication channels. This one here is different from the informal communication. This one here, it is not officially recognized by the management, mostly between informal group members. Informal communication grows out of the social interactions among people who work together. The informal communication channel, consisting of the informal communication chains and networks within the work environment, is known as grapevine communication. It carries information that is not or cannot be transmitted by the formal means. Socially, when we are in our social life situation, we communicate with our colleagues, with our workers, with our workmates, and many others. Mostly, as we had looked into the organizing function, the informal organization, it has its own type of communication. The informal communication type is known as the grapevine communication, as we had looked previously in our last session during the organizing function. Mr. Heber said Mr. Heber said Mr. Heber. That's based on rumor, which is not official. So this type of communication, like we said, it exists among members of the organization who basically perform social interactions. Interactions which are not recognized by the organization, which are not recognized in the organizational structure. So basing on the channels used for communication, communication can be classified as either a formal communication or it can be classified as an informal communication. So you as a leader, you want to practice effective directing function. You need to have skills in communication. If you have skills in communication, it means that information shall be passed from one member to another member effectively, and they will do what they are required to do in the organization or in the company. How do you get these skills of communication? You have the opportunity right now in your sessions of English. Practice a lot how communication is passed from one point to another, what to avoid wrong communication, how to ensure communication is transmitted effectively, and how to ensure that feedback is provided on a timely manner. All this you can gain if you're very serious with your communication skills. So just to provide conclusion of this chapter, directing, we have said, is the process of integrating people with the organization so as to obtain their cooperation. And the major components of directing are three. That is leadership, motivation, and communication. We have talked about leadership, which is the art of influencing others to direct their will, abilities, and efforts to the achievement of leaders' goals. That is leadership. And in order to influence these others, you must be able to actually have good leadership skills and also understand leadership styles. We also talked about motivation, which is the process by which behavior is mobilized and sustained in the interest of meeting individual needs and achieving organizational objectives. Different ways we can motivate workers. We have looked into different theories, the hierarchy of needs theory, and also the Frederick Herzberg's two theory, which have actually given us a green light of how motivation is conducted. Communication is also another important thing we have discussed, which is the interchange of ideas, information, feelings, emotions among two or more persons in a way that they share a common understanding about it. So communication can be classified in different ways, such as the degree of formality, direction, method, and other variables. So this is the summary of the directing function, which we have just concluded within this week. Up to there, I will leave you with those revision questions, which you can go through them during your free time while you are at home. Go through those questions, try to provide answers to those questions, because they will help you in understanding more about the directing function. With those few remarks, brings me to the end of the session, and wishing you all the best in your